our webinar on guarding against supply chain risks. So today's speakers are Morgan Zimmerman. He is the CEO of the Netvibes Exalead brand for revealing information intelligence at Dassault Systèmes. He'll be followed by Mathieu Modelonde, who is a senior manager at our partner Avancore. Next up will be William Law. He's a senior industry process consultant who will be speaking with Julien Lauteau, an industry process expert at our brand. And with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Morgan, who will provide an introduction.
The last few months have revealed an incredible ability of both enterprises and individuals to act and react under unusual circumstances. We have been able to measure how the 3D experience platform has created the conditions for high responsiveness while creating incredible innovation throughout the entire value network. Today, we are going to show you how we have matured AI technology, content, knowledge, and know-how to secure high resilience in the supply chain. You will see how we can transform information flows into early signals that will allow you to react before the market or before your competition. We will show you how to transform intuitions into evidence that will allow to sustain strong managerial position. More specifically, you will understand how we can measure any risks that may affect your production. More importantly, we will then show you how AI technology can allow to reveal contextual, relevant, competitive alternatives to any defecting supplier. Welcome to the Edge of 3D Experience platform.
Thank you, Morgan. Based on his consultancy's experience with customers, Mathieu Modelonde from our partner Avancore will use the global pandemic as a catalyst for disruption when he presents this industry perspective of supply chain risks and best practices. Here's Mathieu.
Hello everyone, Mathieu Modelonde speaking from Avancore. Before jumping into the demonstration of the various tools developed by Dassault Systèmes, I'd like to make a quick introduction about the supply chain risks. Most of them have been revealed by the COVID-19 crisis. Maybe a quick introduction about Avancore, who we are. So we are a consulting company specialized in the industrial competitiveness. So we work in the industry and in the industry only. We pretty much have the same clients as Dassault Systèmes, and our key added value is to support our client in generating some substantial savings, measurable, and we commit on it. The reason why we have created this partnership with Dassault Systèmes is very straightforward. Dassault Systèmes have some very powerful tools. Most of them are very powerful in order to make the companies of our clients more efficient, and efficiency is our job at Avancore. So leveraging Dassault Systèmes tools together with our knowledge of the industry and our clients' constraints, this makes a very powerful combination to generate some very substantial savings to our clients. So that's the reason why I am here today together with Dassault Systèmes. Now coming to the COVID-19 crisis and the supply chain risks that has been revealed by this crisis. Just a quick introduction. There is three main types of risk for me regarding the supply chain that has been revealed. The risks that are related to the suppliers, the risks that are related to the logistics, and the risks that are related to the business relationship with your supply chain. Starting with the suppliers related risks, that's maybe the most obvious one. You all know that some suppliers, of course, has stopped their production. Maybe some of them even went into bankruptcy, and this would lead to some parts missing into your production. The difficulty there is not only to face this kind of part missing, it is also for you to be able to identify which supplier is facing an issue. It could be your tier 1 or tier 2 supplier, and that might be easy for you to identify which of them is facing that kind of issue. But then when it comes to tier 3, tier 4, tier N or material suppliers, then it starts to be a bit more complicated for you to have a visibility on which part of the supply chain is facing which risks. So this is the suppliers related risk that has been revealed during the COVID-19 risk. Regarding the logistics risks, of course, the logistic providers, just like the suppliers that we discussed, can be facing some capacity reduction and bankruptcy. This would impact your supply chain for sure, but also the customs can have an impact on your supply chain. We have noticed that in some countries, there's been some disruption associated to the customs with a lead time strongly increased, and there could even be some blockage at the customs. That's definitely one of the key risks revealed by the COVID-19 crisis. And the third topic, the one we call the business relationship. Basically, the fact that you are not able anymore to visit your supplier can induce some risks because you are not as close as you should be with your supplier. It's difficult for you to ensure the level of quality. It's difficult for you to ensure the prioritization at your suppliers. And it's even more difficult for you to identify new alternative suppliers and to qualify them. So all of that, the business relationship that has been reduced due to the COVID-19 crisis is also for me one of the key main risks regarding supply chain. So now, based on this risk, maybe a few best practices that we see at our clients. I've split that into two categories. The one that are the prevention best practices, meaning how to avoid an issue to happen, and then the reaction best practices, which means that once the issue happens, how to make it, how to mitigate the impact. Regarding the prevention, first topic, you need to enhance the knowledge of your supply chain. You need to know who is your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier N supplier in order to make sure that once one of them is failing, you can react quickly. The second one is quite obvious, but some of you still have some single source parts. You need to avoid that. You need to limit the single source parts because you need to be able to use a second source if one of them is facing a failure. Third topic, multi-continent. We just discussed about the customs. There could be also some other political or geopolitical issues. Make sure that you are not sourcing from one single country or even one single continent. If you do so, you will be able to face that kind of problem and make sure that you can switch from one continent to the other when you have such a crisis. The fourth one is crisis management. You need to be prepared. You need to know how to react. You need to know what could be the governance, what could be the backup plans in case such a crisis happens back again. So these were the prevention best practices, and now regarding the reaction best practices. Once this happens, when you have a part missing, you need to be able to search quickly into your database if you have some other parts that you could use feed farm function in replacement of the part that is missing. And that's for me key to having a quick reaction in your supply chain. The second one, once you have one of your suppliers that is failing, you need to be able to identify new suppliers and to qualify them in order to have your reaction within your supply chain and make sure that you can actually quickly come back to normal. So that's maybe one of the key aspects regarding the qualified suppliers. You will see in the demonstration that will be starting in a couple of seconds that most of these best practices can be covered, can be supported by some tools developed by Dassault System. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mathieu. Now, William Law and Julien Lauto will present a use case of how the combination of monitoring the market with social listening dashboards and connecting engineering with procurement using PartSupply on the 3D Experience Marketplace can help you anticipate and mitigate supply chain risks.
Thank you, Mattia. As we have seen this year, many existing supply chain networks have been highly susceptible to external risk factors. The COVID-19 crisis has had massive impacts on the supply chains of almost all businesses globally. To limit the effects of such issues, a resilient supply chain is needed. This includes having the visibility to be able to anticipate risks that may happen in the future, and then decreasing or eliminating that risk by making use of redundancy within the supply chain system to implement the appropriate alternative plans. When it comes to monitoring the supply chain, it is increasingly necessary to look outside the business and keep track of developments with suppliers, logistical infrastructure, and any external factors that might affect the ability for any point in the system to operate. The social business analyst role allows you to monitor what is happening by focusing on the sources that are relevant and insightful to the supply chain. These could be industry journals, government-issued information such as SEC filings, recalls, and OSHA citations, or supply chain logistics, risk management, and legal publications. Here, I'm using the Social Analytics app to monitor all of our current bearing suppliers. We're searching through all of our corpuses of data for articles that mention the locations where each supplier has factories and other facilities. Any article that mentions a relevant location, as well as some kind of risk, whether it is an approaching hurricane, an uptick in violent protests, or an infectious disease outbreak, will appear in the chart associated with the corresponding supplier. We can easily see how many articles related to potential geographical risk factors are associated with each supplier's operations. We can see what is normal for each one, how it's changing over time, and if there has been any change indicating that one or more suppliers are at risk. By viewing data related to specific types of risk by geolocation, we can map which locations around the world are potential hotspots for risk. We're breaking out risk into categories such as political instability, public health, and severe weather. But because of the extensibility of the platform, we can easily configure it to analyze any type of risk that we have relevant sources for. Any data points that warrant further investigation can be drilled into to understand the root cause. Here, I can see a large number of articles in India. By drilling down to the article level, I can see that there are floods, and I have easy access to read all of the relevant articles to draw my own conclusions about the potential risk that this poses to my supply chain. In the Financial Risk tab, we're reviewing potential financial and legal risks that our suppliers may be exposed to. For content that is few and far between, a track topic allows us to review every article that is published that matches our search terms. I see that a number of suppliers have been implicated in the breaking of competition laws. This is an important insight to consider because of the need to adhere to today's strict corporate social responsibility guidelines. In addition, a supplier's legal issues could hamper their ability to deliver, or they could even go out of business. There are various collaboration tools within the 3D Experience platform that allow me to annotate this article or share it with others. Here, I'm going to use the Opinions feature to add 2 dimensions of information to the article of interest. In this case, the name of the supplier at risk and a sentiment. This allows me or any other user of the dashboard to identify items that have already been reviewed by others and how they were perceived by them. As well as evaluating negative risk factors, Netvibes can also be used to monitor positive attributes in existing or potential new suppliers. To evaluate a potential new supplier to replace supplier 2 that we identified as being at risk, in addition to other metrics, I'll review the breakdown by innovation to ensure we are partnering with a forward-thinking company, as well as corporate social responsibility. Innovation allows me to see not only the press releases and announcements that the supplier itself is publishing, but also acquisitions, management change, and other coverage the company is getting in the relevant industry media. We see that Supplier 7 has a good share of voice when it comes to innovation, and by drilling in, we can also see that this coverage is highly positive. This same supplier also has a good proportion of their CSR content, and again, it's highly positive. Having identified a supplier that we are currently using that no longer meets our requirement, we have identified a new company that may be a suitable replacement. Next, we need to ensure that this supplier has the ability to supply the actual components we need, so I'll hand it over to my colleague, Julien.
Thank you, William. Before showing you how we will handle that issue with Supplier 2, let me first introduce the application we are using. PartSupply Community can be seen as a 3D search engine of catalog of parts hosted in our 3D Experience marketplace. It is a way to access components from suppliers. As shown, there is more than 900 suppliers with more than 50 million of configuration of parts. We can explore the catalog and see the content of a specific supplier. Parts have been classified and I can filter on specific categories. Here, for example, screw and nut. When clicking on a specific part, I can see the detailed view. I can see a 3D overview. I can see the different configuration of the part, the similar parts of this nut, and I can see the engineering and sourcing attributes for this part. If I want to focus on the similar parts, I can display them all and then compare the parts in terms of dimensions or attributes or whatever. I can also explore the parts based on their categories and use other filters, like here, for example, the country of the suppliers. Now, imagine that I am the manager of the parts catalog in a company. I want that all my engineers, all my sourcing managers, all the people work in a controlled environment containing validated parts from validated suppliers, and containing, of course, also the parts produced by our company. We call those parts in-house parts. PartSupply Enterprise is then the perfect tools for that. You will be able to select specific external catalogs from PartSupply Community. More precisely, you will be able to select specific configuration of parts and then make them available on your dedicated search engine for all your employees. You will also be able to create your own in-house catalog that will contain your parts. For this, you can simply upload the parts by drag and drop, or you can also use what we call an edge agent. This edge agent is installed on your servers and will connect to all your PDM in order to feed your PartSupply Enterprise application with your content. At the end, you have a search engine dedicated to your company, containing in-house data and selected suppliers. All the people of the company will then simply work on validated and controlled set of parts for the design or the sourcing. If any employees of the company needs to search for a screw, using the search engine and the filters, it will find the screw it needs and that is allowed to use. For the designers, it is also a way to find relevant parts and use them directly in their design. For example, here, in SolidWorks client, the engineer can search a similar part using PartSupply Enterprise and replace the part in its design. Now let's go back to our issue with supplier 2, identified as at risk. Using PartSupply Enterprise, I can directly see all the parts from that supplier. I can see that there are two categories of parts, and some parts have been set as at risk. I can directly filter to display this part, and for the moment, I have no alternates for this part, which is problematic. Let's try to find for each of these parts a good alternate to secure my production. On this first rivet, I can see in the engineering properties that there is a cadmium surface treatment, which is key to me, and I can see that in terms of sourcing, it is at risk. Using the similarity search, I can see a potential alternate. I can compare in detail the parts and see, for example, that this alternate has also a cadmium surface treatment. I can find and check in details this part from that supplier because it has been previously saved in the PartSupply Enterprise internal catalog by the part manager. Now let's broaden the search to the entire PartSupply community catalog. Therefore, I am extending the similar search, and here I can find other potential alternates. I can also compare the different parts to be sure to find the best alternates for my selected supplier or from all the suppliers from PartSupply community. At the end of the process, if I want to pick the part from supplier 4 as an alternate, I can publish that to all the users. You can see now that there is an alternate for this part at risk, and that alternate is coming from supplier 4. I can then do the same for all the other parts at risk to be able to secure my production. Using PartSupply Enterprise, I have been able to find alternates to parts provided by a supplier that was at risk in order to secure my catalog of parts.
Thank you, Will and Julien. They are with us right now for the Q&A session with Philippe Boulet. Philippe is a Vice President of Cloud Solutions at Dassault Systèmes with the Netvibes Exalead brand. And we'd like to encourage you to insert your questions into the question panel for Philippe, Will, and Julien to reply. With that, I'll turn it over to Philippe.
So there is a question about what type of sources can Netvibes source information from? News, social media, etc. I think it's not a question for me. It's more a question for Will.
Yes, thanks, Philippe. I can take that one. So Netvibes is very broad, and we really designed it to be agnostic in terms of what types of sources it can aggregate. First of all, it can aggregate any RSS feed. So any site that does provide an RSS feed, you can always integrate with, even if it requires basic HTTP authentication. And then we also integrate with a number of APIs to allow us to bring in content from social networks and other aggregators. So there's a very broad range of content we can pull from news sites, industry publications, content published by government agencies, and more specialist sources like patents and scientific journals, which can be really useful as well. And you have control to add those individually and create your own libraries, your own corpus of sources. So it's very specific in terms of what it's looking at. You can also use our pre-built industry libraries, which are pre-built with sources relevant to each of the industries that Dassault Systèmes covers. Or you can use search, which allows you to search for keywords across news sites, blogs, forums, and social networks like Twitter and Reddit.
Okay, there is another question from Ricky asking about can PartSupply be used for kinematic systems such as CNC machines, robots, actuators, etc., or is it focused more on static standard parts? So the answer would be for me more on static standard parts. You know, when you compare, it's a good example. CNC machine or robots is a good example. Because you know, the shape of the machine is not the important topic. It's more the accuracy of the machine, how many axes, etc., etc. So the analytics in that case is more about the capacities than the shape in itself. So PartSupply, when we make comparison between parts, it's about first the shape and also the associated attributes. So for example, in PartSupply, you can find, you can compare motors, you can compare bearings, and firstly, we compare the shape. Second, we compare the associated attributes. For example, we can consider that two parts which are 100% similar, if they are not in the same material, they are not similar. So it's you know, computation between shape and attributes. But in your question, when the products, because it's not a part, it's a product. CNC machine are global product, robots are global product. In that case, it makes less sense. It's more about specification of usage and capacities. I hope I answer the question. A second question from Ricky is about PartSupply, is about are their design quality restriction on part within the PartSupply marketplace. Everything relative to the quality, to the material, etc., is important. So of course, the richer is the specification of part from the catalog, the better it is. So sometimes it happens that the same component, we receive information from different content providers, from different sources with different richness. So of course, we will privilege, we will show more the richest information comparing to the other one, because the objective of PartSupply is to provide the better quality information for our customers. So we have no, there is no question of, you know, we do not receive fees for advertising, etc. So our key concern, our first priority is to deliver the more precise information, the most precise content to the people who are accessing to the marketplace. Anything else you want to add to this answer, Julien?
No, it was clear. It was complete.
Okay. Another question from Ricky is perhaps for you, Julien, is does PartSupply provide cost information or specific inquiries to the supplier requested to get this information? So there is two different questions in this one. Do you want to answer, or do you want me to do it?
No, you can do it. I will complete if I have more to say.
Yeah. Today, we are not providing costs into PartSupply for mechanical parts, and the way a specific inquiry to supplier required to get this information. What is, so if your question is about the business model, the users, as mentioned by Julien, the usage of PartSupply is for free. So I answer the following question, which is, do suppliers have any access to information on who is accessing their part? The answer is yes, and it's yes if the user has authorized this information to be transferred to the supplier. So the answer to the following question, could this information be used by them, so by the supplier, for lead generation, marketing, etc.? The answer is yes. So what I would like to know is who the company of Ricky. Ricky look interested to be a supplier in our marketplace, which is a good signal. Question from David. Thank you for your insightful presentation. Concerning the assessment of risk, how do you treat social media data?
I can take that one.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess first of all, we technically we treat it the same as any other article, but obviously we recognize that the reliability of social media and any source isn't always equal to others. But that said, it can be really useful in its own right. So what we do is we make it very easy to separate different types of media when you're doing an analysis or a search. So there's essentially a flag, so you can choose whether you want to analyze news content, or what we call press and media, blogs, social networks, forums, and videos. So it's very easy to segment the data. So you may start by looking at everything to kind of be able to quickly assess a large aggregate of information, and there will be certain analytical outputs that make sense in that context. However, there will be other outputs that make more sense for looking at a narrower view and kind of pinpointing information. And then I'd also say that we do have some tools that allow you for social networks that will provide us with some additional kind of metadata, like Twitter, that allows us to identify influencers based on how many people are following them, or their ratio between followers and following. And you can use those to kind of take away the less reliable Twitter accounts and focus on those that have more reliability. And then I think to make use of those tools, I'd say that the consulting process during deployment and rollout is very important, where we'll essentially advise our customers on how kind of best to make use of the Netvibes platform.
Okay, last question for you, Will, before we come back to PartSupply. So about Netvibes, can the Netvibes tool, I think I know the answer, but you will say it better than I do. Can the Netvibes tool allow also be used to monitor customer, your company reputation, competition within the market?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. It is a tool that has a number of different end use cases. Monitoring the supply chain is just one of them that we focus on, but you can use it for use cases such as innovation and ideation in terms of new product design, doing market research and so on to understand what kind of needs people have when you're building a new product. You can use it for competitive intelligence, and whether that's looking at the marketing campaigns your competitors are putting out, what people are saying about your competition's products, or what the industry is saying about your competition's products. You can use it for general market and industry intelligence. You can use it for quality, looking at what customers are saying about the existing products that you have out there on the marketplace, what they like about them, what kind of problems they're having with them. So yeah, there are lots of other use cases for Netvibes beyond just supply chain intelligence.
Thank you. So a question for PartSupply. So a question from Kennedy, who asked, how many suppliers do you have in PartSupply? So it's very simple as of today, because it's changing every second, let's say every day, and it's a problem for our presentation. It's 935 suppliers, which represent a little bit more than 53 million. But our indexation technology means every second a new supplier and new information can come. And the second question associated by Kennedy is, how do you get suppliers into your database? So I would like to tell you it's because I have a magic wand, but it's not the case. PartSupply, if you look at it, it's huge. You know, it's one of the biggest, or perhaps the biggest supplier database and parts database you can access to for free. And so it's at the same time, you know, we have a partnership with TracePart. So a bigger part of our marketplace is coming from TracePart, but we also aggregate information coming from 3D Content Central. 3D Content Central is a marketplace of SolidWorks, and they started 10 years ago. So they have also a huge quantity of suppliers and parts. And we also have direct suppliers, because we have a solution called PartSupply Enrollment. We deliver for free to companies, to manufacturers who wants to publish their content directly into PartSupply. So we have this solution, which is called, I repeat again, and thank you for this opportunity to make the advertising of the product. It's called PartSupply Enrollment. And if you go into the welcome page of PartSupply, you can see a banner where it's written, if you want to publish your part, click on this link. And we deliver a tool which allow very easily to create your company into PartSupply, to upload your part, to dynamically keep it up to date, and receive the leads. And when I say for free, it's for free. What you pay is the leads, the downloads, the information about the downloads, the analytics we deliver you on the usage of your part into our website. There is a last question, I think. I don't know if I have still time. Tell me, the team, if I have still time to answer to some additional questions.
Yes, go ahead, Philippe.
So I have a question from David, but I don't know if it's about Netvibes or about PartSupply. So the question, you will tell me, guys. More especially, can you visualize actors and their relations? I think it's about Netvibes. In a graph, the question was, can you visualize actors and their relation in a graph?
Yeah, so I would say you can certainly visualize the actors in terms of the authors of any content that's published. So whether it's on social media or news or blogs and so on, you can definitely visualize those. You can see who has been publishing the most content about whatever it is you're interested in. You can see maybe who's been posting the most negative content, the most positive content. So any way that you can kind of filter information, you can view the authors or the actors in that context. So yes, you can definitely visualize those and see kind of who's publishing the most information about the subject of interest.
Okay, a last question from Sarah. I think it's for you, Will. How easy, I can answer the question, but again, you will be much more efficient than me. How easy it is to set up in respect of a first-time user? To set up an environment,
yeah, I would
like
say
the Netvibes environment.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. So Netvibes is all cloud-based, so it's very easy to get going. There's no kind of software to install or anything like that, and it is all it's all configurable using kind of front-end web interface. There's no kind of development needed, so no developers need to be involved. We do certainly recommend a training before you get started, just simply for the fact that there are a number of best practices to follow that we can recommend to you to make sure that you're setting up a dashboard that is efficient, that's monitoring the right sources, that is using queries that are segmenting the data in the right way. It definitely helps to have a kind of somewhat technical mind, I guess, to do that, but there are no kind of special requirements. So I think with the training, I would say it falls under the easy category for me. That said, we do offer services to build dashboards, and what a number of our customers like to do is have us build an initial dashboard so that they can get a sense of what a really good dashboard looks like, and it's then easier to kind of build off that for creating subsequent dashboards to monitor other subjects, maybe other suppliers or for other departments.
Well, could we say that there are two categories of users? The one who is building this dashboard, and which some of them could be very clever, very complex, etc. And some users which will who will stay on just using it, providing by the first one.
Yes, yeah, I think so, and that's really kind of how we've designed the Netvibes role. So yeah, there are certainly more kind of power users who build the dashboards, who understand how the queries work a bit better, and then other users who don't really need any technical knowledge at all to just consume the information and to find the insights and identify them within the charts and so on.
Okay, and funny enough, Ricky is just asking also this question. Thank you for a good presentation. So I like to say compliments like this. How are the Netvibes tools accessed that role are needed for this functionality? So yes, it's a specific roles. So the question looks so straight. So how are the Netvibes tool access that role are needed for this functionality? So yeah, we need a role. It's this role is not for free. You need to pay for the role of Netvibes. So I think it was the last question we received, and I deliver pretty all these questions. So Karin, do you want to make the conclusion?
Yes, please. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you to Morgan and Mathieu, Will and Julien for your presentations. And thank all of our attendees for your attention. Don't hesitate to contact Philippe at the email address up on your screen if you think of anything else. And we will be following up with an emailing of the replay that you can share with your colleagues. So thank you all again, and have a great rest of your day.